Stuttgart was cloaked in a soft December frost, the kind that turned the rooftops white and the windows misty with breath. The Christmas markets buzzed with the smell of cinnamon, roasted almonds, and the distant laughter of children. But inside a modest home on Rosensteinstrasse, Frau Anneliese Becker stared at her living room with a growing weight in her chest. The tree was up, decorated with glass baubles and delicate wooden ornaments she had collected over decades. Warm fairy lights danced across the walls, and the air carried a faint note of vanilla from the cake she had baked the night before. Her children, now adults with families of their own, bustled about, exchanging jokes and wrapping papers, their voices full of joy. It had been a tradition for as long as she could remember. Gifts placed under the tree, names scribbled on tags, the slow unwrapping one by one as snow tapped gently at the windows. But as the gifts dwindled and the laughter began to fade into contentment, Anneliese realized something quietly unsettling. Not a single gift bore her name. She watched her son Thomas give his wife a new watch, his twin daughters each a carefully chosen book. Her daughter Katerina handed her husband a wool scarf and their little boy a set of toy trains. Even the family dog had a ribbon bone. But there was nothing, absolutely nothing, for her. She cleared her throat. "That was lovely," she said, her voice strained but even. "Is everything unwrapped already?" Thomas looked up from his seat, a flicker of discomfort in his eyes. "Ah, yes, I think that was everything." Katerina shifted awkwardly. "Mum, we thought about it. We just couldn't find anything that felt right for you this year." Anneliese blinked. "Right for me? You know, something that fits your age." Nothing seemed suitable. "You don't use gadgets, and you've got everything already." Silence fell between them like snow on cobblestones. Her breath caught, but she forced a smile, nodding politely. She stood, brushing her hands on her apron. "I see. No worries, really. I suppose I've had enough gifts in my life." But as she turned toward the kitchen, her heart gave a quiet lurch. And that was when she saw it, the old photo album tucked behind the bookshelf. A forgotten relic. And perhaps, just perhaps, the beginning of something none of them were ready for. The evening quiet was broken only by the ticking of the antique wall clock. Anneliese sat at the edge of her favorite armchair, the old photo album resting on her lap. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it, the crackle of the spine a whisper from the past. The first page held a faded picture of her as a young woman, standing beside a fir tree in the Black Forest. Her smile, wide and unguarded, caught her off guard. She had forgotten how carefree she once looked. She turned the page. There were photos of Christmases long gone. Thomas and Katerina as toddlers in matching red pajamas. Her late husband, Victor, pretending to be Father Christmas, a pillow stuffed beneath his coat. Laughter, snow, warmth, all captured in silent images. She barely noticed the soft footsteps behind her. "Mum." It was Katerina's voice, hesitant. "You've been quiet." Anneliese didn't look up. "Do you remember this?" She pointed to a photograph where the whole family, 3 generations, posed in front of a snow-covered cabin near Lake Constance. Katerina leaned over her shoulder. "That was the winter we all got snowed in. You made goulash for everyone with barely anything left in the pantry. And we played cards by candlelight when the power went out," Anneliese added softly. Katerina smiled. "It was one of the best Christmases we ever had." Anneliese finally met her daughter's eyes. "I wonder when Christmas stopped feeling like that." Katerina's smile faltered. "We didn't mean to leave you out, Mum." "I know," she said. "But it still happened." There was a pause. The kind that wrapped itself in emotion but said nothing out loud. Then something fell from between the pages, a yellowing envelope, sealed and fragile. Anneliese picked it up, eyes narrowing. She recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Victor's. Her breath caught as she opened it. Inside was a letter, dated the Christmas before he died. Liebst Anneliese. If you are reading this, I must have forgotten to hide it better. Every year, I plan a gift that speaks of your heart, not your age. If you're alone as you read this, remember, you are the reason this family ever celebrated anything with warmth and meaning. Please don't let them forget how this began. Tears welled in her eyes. The ink had faded, but the message was alive. Annalise stood. "Come, help me bring this album into the living room." Katerina looked confused. "Why?" "Because it's time they remembered," she said. "And I intend to remind them." And so, the silence of the evening began to stir, with memories, with emotion, and with the quiet rebellion of a woman determined not to be forgotten. Annalise entered the living room with the album cradled in her arms like something sacred. The chatter had died down. The television buzzed softly in the background, a holiday film no one was really watching. Thomas was nursing a cup of mulled wine, while the children were sprawled on the rug, half asleep beside their opened gifts. She didn't wait for attention. She placed the photo album firmly on the coffee table, the sound drawing every eye. "I think we've forgotten something important," she said, her voice calm but unwavering. Thomas raised an eyebrow. "What's that, Mum?" Annalise opened the album, flipping to the page with the snowed-in Christmas cabin. She turned it around for them all to see. This is who we used to be. Before smartphones and gift cards and rushing through everything." Thomas and Katerina exchanged glances. The children leaned in, curiosity slowly overtaking their drowsiness. Katerina reached for the album, flipping through pages. "I forgot how many moments we used to capture," she murmured. "These are beautiful." "They're real," Annalise said. And behind every one of them was a moment someone made an effort. Not just to give something, but to be present. She handed Victor's letter to Thomas. He unfolded it slowly, his eyes scanning the words in silence. When he looked up, there was a tremble in his expression that hadn't been there a moment ago. "I never knew he wrote this," he whispered. "He did. For me. But for all of you as well." The room shifted, the mood quiet but thick with thought. The youngest granddaughter, little Sophie, pointed to a photo of Annalise holding a snowball, laughing in mid-throw. "Grandma, is that really you?" Annalise chuckled softly. "It is. I wasn't always the boring old woman you forgot to buy a gift for." Sophie crawled onto the sofa and hugged her tightly. "I want to have Christmas like that." "So do I," murmured Katerina. Thomas set the letter down. "We need to do something about this." Annalise's eyes sparkled. "Well, tomorrow is still part of the holiday. And I think I've just had an idea." For the first time that evening, the air changed. The decorations no longer felt hollow. The house seemed to lean in, listening, warming. A memory had been revived, and with it, something new was beginning to stir. The next morning, Stuttgart woke to fresh snowfall. The rooftops gleamed like iced cakes, and the pavements were silent, muffled under thick, untouched snow. In the Becker household, the air felt different, as though something invisible had shifted overnight. Annalise was already up, her apron dusted with flour as she prepared her famous apple strudel. The children, still in their pajamas, gathered in the kitchen drawn by the smell, their curiosity piqued. Thomas entered, rubbing his eyes. "You're up early, Mum." Annalise looked up from the dough. "Plenty to do. We've got a party to prepare." Katerina blinked. "A party?" She nodded. "A proper Christmas gathering. Not just gift-giving and sitting around. We're going to recreate one of our old holidays." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "You mean the snowed-in Christmas?" "Exactly," she smiled. "Just like that one near Lake Constance. No gadgets. No screens. Just music, food, laughter, and stories." The idea landed like a spark. Slowly it caught. Katerina's husband offered to bring firewood from the shed. The children were tasked with cutting colored paper for decorations. Thomas suggested they make glowwine from scratch just like Victor used to. The house, once filled with static routine, was suddenly alive with bustling purpose. By mid-morning, the living room was unrecognizable. Paper chains hung from the ceiling, candles flickered in old holders, and the stereo played quiet classical music instead of digital playlists. Annalise brought out a stack of old board games and even a worn deck of cards. The photo album sat open in the center of the table, like a sacred text. Katerina lit the fireplace with a practiced hand. The children danced barefoot on the rug, their cheeks pink from helping in the cold hallway. It was not perfect, not polished, but it was real. Annalise watched from the doorway, her eyes glassy, with quiet joy. It felt like Victor was there, just beyond the flames, just out of sight. Thomas approached her, a small box in his hand. "We found this in the attic while getting the decorations. I think you'll want to open it." Inside was a Christmas ornament, hand-carved, shaped like a heart. On the back, engraved in delicate writing, was one word: Danky. Annalise touched the smooth wood with trembling fingers. She smiled, the kind that came not from happiness alone, but from being seen, from being remembered. She hung it gently on the tree, where the lights caught its curve. And the house, for the first time in years, felt full again. That night, once the children had fallen asleep and the last candle had burned low, Annalise sat by the fire in silence. The flickering glow danced across the walls, casting shadows that seemed to move with memory. The day had been more than she expected. Laughter had echoed again in the house, and old stories had resurfaced like forgotten treasures. Yet beneath her contentment, there lingered a quiet ache, a hollow that no number of strudels or songs could quite fill. She reached again for Victor's letter, unfolding it gently on her lap. Her fingers traced the words she now knew by heart. A soft sigh escaped her lips. "Why does joy always carry a weight?" she whispered to the empty room. She didn't hear Thomas enter until he was standing just behind her. "I thought you might still be up," he said, pulling up a chair. "I couldn't sleep," Annalise replied. It's strange how full the day felt, and yet. Thomas nodded, finishing the thought. "Still feels like someone's missing." She turned to look at her son. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them was not empty. It was full of shared understanding. "You know," Thomas said quietly, "when Dad passed, I didn't know what to do with myself. I kept working, kept fixing things, just to avoid coming here. Avoid you." Annalise didn't flinch. "I know. I thought it would get easier over time, that if I just kept going, the pain would blur." "Did it?" He shook his head. "Not really. But today, watching everyone, watching you, it made me realize something. We stopped showing up for each other. Not just you, Mum. All of us." Annalise's voice was soft, but steady. "Grief makes cowards of all of us. We hide from it, and in doing so, we start hiding from each other." Thomas looked into the fire. "I don't want to do that anymore." She reached for his hand and held it tight. The warmth of it, the simplicity of that gesture, spoke louder than any apology. For a while, they sat there, mother and son, bound by the same loss, the same guilt, and now, the same resolve. From upstairs, a soft sound of sleigh bells echoed, not real, just a musical chime from one of the children's snow globes left spinning on a shelf. It made Annalise smile. "You know, your father would have hated all that noise," she said. Thomas chuckled. "Yeah, but he would have loved today." The fire crackled, and outside, snow kept falling, gently, silently, as if the world itself was laying down a blanket over everything forgotten, giving it a second chance. Morning broke over Stuttgart with a hush. The snow had thickened during the night, smoothing the streets into pale ribbons. Inside the Becker home, the scent of roasted chestnuts and cinnamon lingered, floating gently through the halls like a lullaby. Annalise was at the window, a steaming mug in her hands. The world looked softer, quieter, wrapped in winter's arms. Then a knock. Not the gentle rapping of family or neighbor. This was firmer.
Certain.
Thomas emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands. "Expecting someone?" Annalise shook her head. "No one." He opened the door. There, on the snowy doorstep, stood a man in his late 40s. His coat was worn at the cuffs, his scarf unraveled at the edge. Yet his posture was proud, and his eyes, blue and clear, bore a strange familiarity. "Excuse me," the man said in German. "I'm looking for Frau Becker." Annalise stepped forward slowly. "Yes, I'm Frau Becker." The man smiled faintly. "Then this is long overdue." He reached into his coat and pulled out a weathered envelope. On it, her name, Annalise Becker, written in Victor's unmistakable handwriting. Her breath caught. "I'm sorry," he added. "I should explain. My name is Lucas. I worked with your husband years ago." Thomas stepped beside her, eyes narrowing slightly. "You worked with my father?" Lucas nodded. "We were stationed together, just before he retired. He asked me to deliver this to his wife. He said it was meant for a Christmas that felt right." Annalise took the envelope with trembling hands. It was thick. Not just a letter, something more. "Why now?" she asked softly. Lucas glanced around. "I've been trying to come, but life has its way. This morning I woke up and thought, if not now, then never." Thomas stepped aside. "Please come in." Lucas hesitated, then stepped inside, snowflakes melting from his shoulders. The warmth of the house greeted him gently, as if recognizing him. In the living room, Annalise sat carefully on the armchair by the fire, the envelope resting on her lap like something sacred. Lucas stood by the window, quiet and respectful. She opened it. Inside, another letter, handwritten, along with an old photograph of her and Victor dancing in the snow at Lake Constance. Her eyes brimmed before she'd even read the first word. Victor's voice returned, not in sound, but in spirit, woven into every curve of his handwriting. "My dear Annalise, if you're reading this, then I have kept my promise. I wanted you to have this on a day when you remembered how to feel again. When the house is full. When your heart is soft. When the snow is thick and silence feels kind. Asterisk." Her hands trembled. She read on. "I hope you know that no matter how far away I may be, I never left this home. I was always in the laughter, in the quiet, in the scent of your strudel, and the way you smile when no one is looking." A tear traced her cheek. She held the letter close. The room was silent, reverent. Lucas cleared his throat. "He spoke of you often. Said you were the fire in his winter." Annalise smiled through the tears. "He was my storm, and my shelter." She looked at the photograph again, then at Lucas. "Will you stay for supper?" He hesitated. "I wouldn't want to intrude." "You're not," Thomas said. "Not today." The hearth glowed warmly. Outside, a child's laugh rang through the air, Sophie and the others, already building snowmen. Inside, Victor's presence lingered, not as memory, but as something alive. The dining room that evening buzzed with a soft, scattered hum of voices, cutlery, and clinking glasses. It had been years since the long oak table had held so many people at once. Laughter danced freely through the air, echoing against the walls like an old song remembered. Annalise sat at the head of the table, the place Victor once claimed. For a brief moment, she hesitated, but Thomas gave her a nod, and she sat down, shoulders squared, smile warm. Sophie leaned in close to her cousin Emile, whispering something about Lucas. The boys' eyes widened, and both of them giggled under their breath. "He looks like he stepped out of a spy film," Emile said with a grin. "Maybe he's Papa's secret brother," Sophie added, only half joking. Annalise overheard, but said nothing. Instead, she allowed herself a moment to simply watch. Her children, her grandchildren, and even this stranger, all bound by a man who had left them more than absence. Lucas, seated near the fireplace, was quieter now. Not withdrawn, just observant, like someone reading a story he'd once heard but never truly understood. After the meal, when the plates had been cleared and the children were nestled in the lounge with their games, Annalise rose. "I have something," she announced gently. "Something Victor wrote. I'd like to share it if that's all right." Everyone quietened. She unfolded the second page of the letter, one she had not yet dared to read aloud. "If you're reading this aloud, it means the house is full again. That alone makes me smile. I wrote this not just for you, but for them too, the ones I loved and left behind." She looked around the room. Thomas, eyes lowered. Lena holding back tears. Even Lucas sat forward slightly. Life is not measured in years, but in gatherings, in meals shared, snowballs thrown, arguments mended by shared glances, and stories retold. This house, Our house was never about walls and windows. It was always about people. So fill it, even when I'm not there to open the door." The room held its breath. Annalise's voice caught, but she went on. "There's a cupboard behind the cellar wall. You know the one, Annalise. Inside, something I never had the courage to give in person." Thomas blinked. "I didn't know there was a cupboard there." Annalise stood. "Help me." Down in cellar, the smell of damp stone and old wine clung to the air. The cupboard, hidden behind a loose wooden panel, hadn't been opened in decades. Inside, a small box wrapped in red cloth. Annalise opened it slowly, revealing a delicate gold locket and a stack of handwritten notes, each addressed to someone at the table. Even Sophie had one. Back upstairs, she placed the box gently in the center of the table. "One by one," she said. "Let's read them together." Lena reached for hers first. Inside, just 5 words. "Your voice was always music." She pressed it to her chest, tears falling freely. Thomas's read. "You carried more than I asked. Thank you." Even Lucas had one. "You are the brother I never had time to become." His hands trembled. Annalise finally opened her own. "You are the home I came back to, even when I couldn't say it out loud." Silence reigned. Not heavy, but full. It was not closure. Not the end. It was a door opening again, just slightly, to let in the snowlight and the sound of familiar footsteps. The next morning, the house was still and soft, like the breath before a song begins. Snow had layered the rooftops again, and the scent of cloves and orange peel drifted through the air from the kitchen. Thomas had woken early, unsettled by dreams he couldn't quite remember. He wandered through the house, memories echoing in every creak of the floorboards. He paused beneath the attic ladder. Something pulled at him. The attic hadn't been opened since Victor's passing. With slow fingers, he tugged the cord. The wooden ladder dropped with a groan. Dust drifted down like ash. "Where are you off to?" Lena asked from the hallway. "Just clearing something," he murmured. He climbed. The attic smelled of paper and cedar. Old trunks, forgotten boxes, and the slanted window that still bore the scratch Victor had made during a summer storm decades ago. Thomas ran his fingers across an old crate marked Becker, 1972. Inside, school books. Photographs. One by one, he lifted them, until his hand brushed something unexpected. A small wooden music box. He blinked. It had belonged to his father, or rather, it had been made by him. Thomas remembered watching Victor carve it on quiet nights when the children were small. The lid was carved with snowflakes and stars. He had never known what was inside. He opened it. A soft, familiar melody escaped, one Annalise used to hum as she tucked them in. The tune trembled through the attic like a ghost taking form. Inside the box was a folded note, not addressed, but written in Victor's careful hand. "If you've found this, you've gone further than most. This melody is not just for comfort, it's for remembering. It is the sound of our home, of your mother's warmth, of peace after a storm. Keep it safe. Pass it down. And when your children ask you what Christmas truly means, open this box." Thomas's throat tightened. He closed the lid gently, as though sealing something sacred. Downstairs, laughter erupted as Sophie and Emile argued over who had made the better snow angel. The locket lay on the mantelpiece, glowing gently in the morning light. He returned the music box to its place in the attic, then paused. Instead of hiding it away, he carried it down. In the living room, he placed it on the coffee table. Everyone looked up. "I found something," he said. He opened the lid again. The melody drifted out, delicate and steady. One by one, everyone fell silent. Even Lucas, leaning against the doorframe, closed his eyes. The room didn't speak. It didn't need to. The music said everything. It was the coldest night yet. Outside, the snowfall had slowed to a hush, coating every branch and stone wall in shimmering white. Inside, the family had gathered around the fireplace again, mugs of spiced tea in hand. The crackling of the fire was the only sound, until Emile asked quietly, "Why did Grandpa leave?" No one answered at first. Then Thomas spoke. "He didn't leave us the way it seemed. Not really. He left himself behind, in letters, in music, in this house. He was trying to find peace. But I think part of him hoped we'd find it too. Lena reached for his hand. From the corner, Lucas stirred. He mentioned my name once, he said, his voice low. In one of the letters he sent to my father years ago. Said he regretted everything about Berlin, especially what it did to Anneliese. I never knew what he meant until now. Anneliese didn't speak, but her eyes glistened. Then slowly, she rose from her chair. I need some air, she said. Thomas stood. Want me to come?
No.
Let me go alone. Just for a bit. She stepped outside. The wind bit gently at her cheeks. The snow beneath her boots crunched softly as she made her way across the garden. The stars blinked faintly above, and the old stone bench near the birch tree welcomed her like an old friend. She sat. For a long time, she simply listened, to the wind in the trees, to the quiet of a winter that had seen so many seasons come and go. And then, just as she closed her eyes, she heard something. Footsteps. She turned sharply. A shadow moved at the far end of the garden.
Slow.
Hesitant. Familiar. But impossible. Victor, she whispered, heart caught in her throat. The figure stopped. The snow shifted around it. It wasn't him. Just Lucas, wrapped in his father's old coat, approaching with an apology in his eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you, he said softly. I saw you leave. She exhaled, shoulders easing. It's all right. I thought for a moment. I know. He sat beside her, brushing snow from the bench. They sat together in silence, the cold forgotten. Then Lucas reached into his coat pocket and handed her a photo. It was old, faded. A picture of Victor and Anneliese, taken in the very garden where they now sat. She hadn't seen it in years. Papa kept this, Lucas said. Even when everything else faded. Anneliese's hand trembled as she held it. She smiled. I remember that day, she whispered. We had nothing, not even proper boots. But we were laughing. My feet were frozen, and I didn't care. Did you love him? Lucas asked quietly. I did, she answered. Even when I didn't want to. They looked out over the snow-covered yard together. I never got to say goodbye, Lucas said. Anneliese nodded. None of us really did. He glanced up at her. But maybe this is enough. Sitting here, sharing this moment. She placed her hand gently on his. Maybe it is. Behind them, the warm glow from the house spilled onto the snow, casting long, quiet shadows. The sound of laughter echoed faintly from within. And for the first time in many winters, the garden did not feel lonely. Christmas morning arrived with golden light streaming through the windows. The snow had stopped. Everything outside lay silent under a thick, brilliant blanket of white. In the Becker household, the day began without fanfare. No presents under the tree. No paper crowns or glittering decorations. But something had shifted. The house felt lighter. Sophie was the first downstairs. She padded into the living room, where the locket still rested on the mantel, next to the music box. She touched both gently, as if they were living things. Anneliese joined her, wrapped in a thick shawl. Mom, Sophie said, I had a dream last night. Did you? Anneliese smiled. There was music, she said. And snow. And Grandpa was there. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me and nodded. Anneliese held her close. Maybe that's all we need sometimes. Soon, the rest of the family gathered. Thomas brewed coffee. Lena sliced stolen bread and laid it on a tray with apples and warm milk. There was no rush, no plan, only the quiet comfort of being together. Lucas sat by the window, sketching something in his notebook. Emile played softly on his uncle's old violin, the tune from the music box, learned by ear. Outside, the old garden seemed to sparkle in gratitude. As the morning wore on, they opened the old chest by the fireplace, one filled with photo albums and old letters. They passed them around slowly. Some pages brought laughter. Others brought tears. But none were avoided. Even the difficult moments found their place. Annalise handed Lucas a letter she had once written, but never sent. It was dated 20 years ago, addressed to Victor. "You should read it," she said.
He did.
It wasn't bitter, just honest. A woman's attempt to make sense of pain, to offer grace without needing to be asked. Lucas folded it carefully and placed it back in the envelope. "Thank you," he said. "No," Annalise replied. "Thank you for finding your way back." The doorbell rang unexpectedly. Thomas opened it to find an elderly man with a wool cap and leather gloves. He held a small package wrapped in brown paper. "I believe this was meant for a Herr Becker," he said in German. "It was found at a sorting center in Ulm. Mislabeled. Been sitting there for over a year." Thomas took the package and thanked him. He brought it inside and laid it on the coffee table. Everyone gathered. He peeled the paper back carefully. Inside was a wooden carving. A family, father, mother, 2 children, holding hands beneath a tree. At the bottom, a name had been etched. "For mein family. Damit you erinnert." For my family. So you will remember. A hush fell over the room. There was no note, no date. But they didn't need one. Each person touched the carving in turn. It wasn't the gift they had expected. It was the one they needed. As dusk settled, they lit a single candle in the center of the room. The flame flickered, casting soft shadows that danced against the old wallpaper. Thomas sat beside Annalise, their shoulders touching. "Do you think he knew?" she asked. "I think he always did," Thomas answered. Outside, night blanketed Stuttgart once more. But inside the old Becker home, something had thawed. Something had been mended. And what remained was enough.